everyone. Welcome back to the Earthon Survival Guide, the podcast for all disciplines, paths, players, and game masters with equesters Josh and Dan. That guy is Josh.
And that guy is Dan.
There we go. And on today's podcast, we will be discussing all things thaumaturgical because we're going to do our deep dive into magic deeper secrets, illusionist spells, first and second circle, because we have some more to add to this thing here. So if you have any questions for us about a spell or anything else you've ever heard us talk about in the last 230 odd episodes, please drop us a line at edsgpodcast@gmail.com. Our inbox is currently empty. It is first come, first serve. So that being said, we're going to get to some illusionist spells. Any thoughts on the ones that came out of Magic Deeper Secrets, Josh?
I will have my thoughts as we go through them.
Well, that's kind of what we do here. Yes.
I don't have any initial things that I want to mention about them now, because I'll be mentioning them later.
That's okay.
We're going to start off by kind of going through and comparing what was the case in previous editions and where things might have moved or ended up now with the release of this book.
Once again, Morgan, thank you for making our lives easier, because you still are contributing in a myriad of ways. So the first circle illusionist spell in Magic Deeper Secrets, the first one to start with is the Bellow of the Thundras, a 0-thread spell.
Yes, this is a return. This was a spell that was a first circle spell in previous editions, and this just amplifies the voice. It allows the caster to be heard, or the target to be heard, over other noise more effectively. It also provides bonuses when such ability to be heard might make a difference. Like, for example, emotion song, leadership, making an impression, anything along those lines, as long as the action is initiated within the duration of the spell.
Yes. And it's a real effect. It's not actually an illusion, so
right.
Not a bad thing to have. Yeah, not at all. Next up is Light Show, and this one I think is just renamed from, we used to be called Light in previous editions, so
yeah, that is
different title. And this one actually is a figment, but it's 2 threads.
Well, it does have a duration of 1 hour. That's part of the reason why it requires such threads. It is a figment because it creates light, but the light itself is not real light. It's kind of exists in that bizarre sort of interactive space where it's an illusion, but everybody is kind of aware it's an illusion, and so there's not really any necessarily negative effect as a result of that.
Fair.
But this is the equivalent of the Dancing Lights spell in D&D.
Yeah.
The caster sort of taps into astral energy, and as a result, light is generated, these individual globes of light, 1 light globe per circle, and they have to appear within range and can be moved about and that sort of thing. And it lasts for an hour, so it's, a decent duration for a low circle spell.
Yeah, this is kind of like your concert spell. Someone's going to give a performance, you want a better light show to go along with it. This is your light show.
Yep, and the caster can manipulate the lights to a certain extent. They can move them, they can change their color, they can dim them, even turn them off, bring them back up to full brightness. They can, if being used in coordination with a performance, can provide a bonus to the test related to the performance, but the caster needs to be concentrating in order to concentrate on making sure that the lights are appropriately being used for that purpose. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm reminded a little bit of Gandalf's fireworks from Lord of the Rings, where there's seems to be a certain amount of magical effect going on with that as opposed to more traditional fireworks.
Yeah, agreed. And I don't think that's an inappropriate use of the spell. It's like you said, his fireworks going on. So next up is Pauper's Purse. There's no change from this as far as name or effects going on. It's just finally came back in to Magic Deeper Secrets.
Another spell that is back from earlier editions. This makes a container in someone's possession hold less than it really does. It creates an extra dimensional space that stuff gets shunted into. So it allows you to hide money.
Yeah.
That there is not apparently as much coin in your purse as its size would seem to indicate, but somebody who is actively examining it does make a sensing test and can discover that it is an illusion and would dispel it, which would bring the coins back from wherever they are.
Yeah, because this only lasts for rank minutes, so it's not like it's going to be good for the rest of your life or anything like that. It's just going to be if you're going through a checkpoint or you need to convince somebody you're not as rich as they might think you are, you've got a few minutes to get that done. So nothing fantastic. Next up is Phantom Astral Spear.
So this is the first of a few spells that are introduced for illusionists in this book where we get more illusory versions of spells from other disciplines. So this is an illusion of Astral Spear, which is the Nethermancer spell, I believe is what it is.
That rings a bell.
It's on page 318 of the original Player's Guide.
Yes, Astral Spear is another Nethermancer spell.
And so it's an illusion, and otherwise is just like that spell. It does have a slightly higher effect test, but that's because it is an illusion, and therefore it could potentially be disbelieved and not have any effect.
Yes.
It is one of several spells like that, similar to Phantom Fireball, for example, which is another illusionist spell that's in the Player's Guide. This is just another spell that would potentially allow the illusionist to masquerade as another magician type if that's what they want to do.
Yes. So speaking of Phantom anything, the next spell up is Phantom Crow Tier. Phantom Astral Spear is 1 thread because it's a combat spell. Phantom Crow Tier is a 0 thread spell.
Right. And again, this is an illusion of the shaman spell Invoke Crow Tear, which is one that does damage and causes partial blindness. And again, slightly higher effect test in terms of the potential damage it can do, but it is an illusion, and so therefore could potentially be disbelieved. Another example of one of those sorts of illusory versions of a previously existing spell from another discipline.
Fair. I keep forgetting those pronounced tear, not tier. My fault.
That's okay. They're spelled the same.
I know, that's why.
But it's crow tear because it is tearing at the target's eyes.
Yes. So, hence my fault. So, I want to automatically go with tier every time because I forget tearing is a thing. Anyway, next up is Rope Guide, a 1-thread spell. And this is
back from earlier editions.
Yes, just reintroduced finally in the Deeper Secrets.
Yep, this allows the caster to animate a piece of rope and be able to manipulate it and allow it to move and even tie itself off or untie itself. Like a rope trick kind of thing. It's a fairly standard like illusion magician effect that you see in a bunch of fantasy games.
I was going to say, this reminds me of the Bugs Bunny cartoon where he's playing a flute and the rope comes out of the basket like it does a snake and so forth.
That's the classic. It's sort of known as the Indian rope trick. It is a traditional illusion effect from traditional magic in the world. Yeah.
So like I said, it's just reintroduced from probably previous editions as well. So it's been long-lasting Earthdawn spell, finally makes its reappearance. Next up is Warning Signal. This is a 3-thread spell. This is and it lasts for rank hours, so it's going to take some oomph.
This is a new spell. This hasn't appeared previously in any edition. This is an alarm type spell. It alerts the spellcaster to the presence of intruders. It wards an area in a sense.
Yeah.
If it detects someone based on the trigger conditions of the spell, it goes off and makes a very loud noise, alerting anyone within 100 yards from the center of the area that it has been triggered. Anyone that is within the area of effect, which is only a 4-yard radius, suffers a -2 from disorientation as a result of the loud noise that just went off.
Yeah.
You put it outside the entrance to a prohibited area, and somebody goes into it, and it goes off, dazes them for a little bit, and alerts guards nearby that somebody is doing it, and they rush to present it.
Yes. I have not seen, but would love to see some adventures that actually make good use of these alarm spells. The Wizard spell and the Illusionist spell. I think they'd be fantastic. Not only in a novel, but just they need to be in some other adventures to kind of do. So that's the first circle spells. Anything that is on par with what is in the player's guide, or anything you would replace or would prefer to have?
I don't think so. A lot of them are a lot more circumstantial, and that's sort of the case with illusionist spells in general.
Yes.
It might be worth considering, depending on the type of game that's going on, whether you might want to pick up one of the phantom damage spells.
Oh, yeah.
Because having additional direct damage spells can be useful, even if they are illusions. So that's something to keep in mind. The other stuff is potentially useful. I do want to mention there were some spells that were in previous editions at First Circle that have moved. Mm-hmm. Blazing Fists of Rage, for example, and True Blazing Fists of Rage, both of those were First Circle spells originally. They have been moved up to Fourth Circle Illusionist, gotcha. And they were both reintroduced here in Deeper Secrets.
Yes.
Disguise Metal was a First Circle spell that has been moved up to Fifth Circle in Deeper Secrets, so that is back. Displace Image got bumped up to Second Circle, so we're going to be talking about that one here in a couple of moments.
Yep.
So at this point, everything that was a First Circle Illusionist spell has been reintroduced in some capacity with the release of this book.
And I also like the fact that the Illusionist would be copying the Phantom Astral Spear and the Phantom Crow Tear so that they could possibly be perceived maybe as either the Nethermancer or a Shaman to throw everybody off, because that's what an Illusionist does.
Yeah, those are certainly potential options that you could have there. For both of those spells, there are enhanced spell knacks that allow you, if you are a multi-disciplined caster that knows the real version of those spells, to put both the real and the illusion version in the same matrix, the same way that you can with Ephemeral Bolt and True Ephemeral Bolt, for example.
Yeah. It's
essentially a knack to be able to do that, and it requires you to be, obviously, of the appropriate disciplines.
Yes, but it's a nice little wrinkle for the Illusionist to have. I like that.
It gives them a little bit more flexibility in that regard, where previously I think the Phantom spells that they had like Phantom Fireball. I think Phantom Lightning Bolt is in the player's guide. So there are a couple of those that are already out there, and this just kind of adds more to that kit.
Yeah, absolutely. So on to Second Circle for the Illusionist. We have the aforementioned in a previous podcast, and their money.
Yes, this was originally called And His Money, and it was a wizard spell previously. This is the same spell, it's just a slightly different name, and it's now an illusionist spell instead of a wizard spell.
Yeah, it's based on...
Imposes a penalty to the target's social defense when it comes to anything involving finances, including haggle and stuff like that.
Yeah, so it's based on the old-fashioned phrase, a fool and his money are soon parted, but there is more inclusive, so we're going to go with that, and I have no problems with that whatsoever. So next up is the Billowing Cloak spell.
Billowing Cloak provides a bonus to tests that improve attitude, like First Impression or Standard Making an Impression tests. It does the dashing hero, the cloak flutters, the hair blows in the wind. For Tiskrang, their head crest or equivalent counts as hair in that case. But it gives them a +2 step bonus to any tests relating to improving attitude.
Yeah. I like the title of this next one, Chicanery, a one-thread spell, and not an illusion.
So this is another enhancement spell. This grants the target bonuses to any kind of manual dexterity tests, so picking pockets, conceal objects, fast hand. Yeah, any kind of tests where you're going to be performing some kind of sleight of hand, concealment, that sort of thing.
Next up is Impossible Knot, as in Knot.
Yeah, this is a spell that is back from previous editions.
Yes.
The caster ties a knot in a rope or cord and makes a test. If successful, the knot will not come loose on its own and is extremely difficult to untie or break.
Yes. But it's a three thread spell, lasts to rank hours, and is an illusion. So it's gonna have some oomph for anyone to get through that. Not gonna lie, that.
It is mainly intended to make it difficult for other people to untie or break the knot. As it does say, it does not make the knot any more effective at being a knot against forces immune to illusions like gravity. So it is not something that is going to allow you to suspend more weight from something than you would normally be able to. It's not going to overcome the laws of physics in that regard. You would use this, like if you are securing a prisoner, you tie them up and you cast Impossible Knot on the rope that you're doing that with. It makes it more difficult for them to try and get out of it or to undo the knot.
Yes, because perhaps you're actually bad at tying real knots, and so you use this spell to help you. Because I would. I'm really bad at knots. Anyway, next up is Phantom Liquid Arrow, because we're going along with a lot of Phantom spells right now.
Another Phantom spell. This is a Phantom version of Liquid Arrow, which is an elementalist spell that shows up in this book.
Yeah, and gotta love it. It's still an illusion, so if you're...
Yeah, again, like the other Phantom spells, it's an illusory version, and like the other Phantom spells, there is a knack that you can learn that allows you to, if you know the real spell, have both the real and the Phantom version in the same matrix.
Yes, and again, it passes you off as possibly being an elementalist instead of an illusionist until somebody figures you out, so... always a good thing. Next up, the one thread spell, Remove Shadow.
Yeah, this is a interesting one. This was a spell that existed in previous editions. The magician removes a target's shadow. Yeah. It is easier to do if the target is willing, but you can do it on an unwilling target. If successful, the target will not cast a shadow even in strong light, and also does not show any reflection in mirrors or other reflective surfaces. So they gain a bonus to any action tests or relevant difficulty numbers to remain unseen or hidden. They are also immune to abilities that target their reflection or shadow, like, for example, Shadow Tether, which is a Nethermancer spell, I believe. It does note, however, that unfortunately those without shadows or reflections are often believed to be horror-touched, if not horrors in truth. Because that's something that shouldn't be happening.
Exactly. Yeah, it's kind of hard to evade shadows.
Kind of a stealth enhancer.
Yeah, only Peter Pan was able to get away with that for a while. And that's just me. So lastly, on the second circle list is the spell Tailor.
Another spell brought back from previous editions. This just allows the caster to change their appearance or the appearance of their clothing, whether to make it look better or worse. It's completely up to them. It does allow them to, if they're making things look better, get a bonus to appropriate tests where that would come into play, and they could cast it on a target and make them look worse to provide them a penalty to similar tests, again, where such things would be in effect. It doesn't stack with other bonuses or benefits that are based on clothing, like, for example, Clean, the wizard spell.
Yes.
As it overwrites essentially the appearance of the clothing with the illusion, so it doesn't really allow you to stack things in that regard. This can come in handy even above and beyond the mechanical bonuses that it could potentially provide in the right circumstances. This is a typical illusionist type spell. I'd be able to make my clothes look like whatever I want.
Yeah. And I'm loving the build out of the illusionist's spell kit. First and second circle. These are great. Any updates to the list of previous?
From previous editions, Crafty Thought was a second circle illusionist spell. It's been bumped up to sixth circle.
Yeesh.
There were several second circle illusionist spells that got bumped down to first and are in the player's guide. Disaster, Encrypt, Ephemeral Bolt, True Ephemeral Bolt.
Yeah.
Monstrous Mantle, like those were all second circle spells that got bumped down to first, in part because they were so iconic in terms of what they were as an illusionist spell. It made a little bit more sense to give it to them a circle earlier. Yeah. Send Message is another one, got moved to first circle. Weather Cloak was an illusionist spell originally. It got moved to Shaman as a first circle spell. We talked about that previously. And then the other one, the biggest change out of these first two circle spells from previous editions, You Got Me was originally an illusionist spell. It has been replaced with a improved spell knack now called
the
You
same
Got
title.
Me that appears in Deeper Secrets.
Fair. That makes sense. So some restructuring, some reorganizing, but nothing truly disappeared. So they're all back in some form or another, either turned into knacks, turned into talents, or really rearranged.
The improved spell knack You Got Me is an improved spell knack off of Best Face.
That makes sense.
Which is an illusionist spell.
Yeah. But that's another podcast. We'll get there.
Best Face allows you to change the appearance of your face. The You Got Me knack basically allows you to do what the old You Got Me spell used to do. It's now just a variant of that previous spell.
Yeah. It's just been moved to a knack instead. So no big deal. So anything in the second circle list that, again, you'd prefer over anything in the player's guide? Since now you can combine the two lists?
Nothing super jumps out at me in any of this. Again, like a nice bunch of enhancement spells and so forth. If you're running a social game, a city-based campaign where you're going to be having a lot of role-playing and interaction tests and stuff like that, there are several spells that are definitely worth looking into if you're going to have an illusionist. I definitely see like a bunch of spells that a multidiscipline like Illusionist Troubadour would absolutely love.
Yeah.
A decent selection of spells. Some, again, that are helpful and provide decent synergies with abilities from other disciplines like Troubadour or Thief or Scout, or for a multidiscipline like that. But nothing that jumps out at me as something that, oh no, you definitely want to take this over anything that would be in the player's guide.
Yeah, no. I'm just glad that they've made their return, and so that you are a little bit more flexible. We've added a bunch of spells here, so these are a nice reintroduction for them for the Illusionist kit. I think Phantom Liquid Arrow would be cool, but yeah, I like the possibilities for the Illusionist's spell kit in a myriad of ways. I've never thought of playing one, honestly, but now I'm leaning toward as a challenge. I will accept.
Yeah, illusionists can be difficult to game master for in some regards because of what they can do. They can be frustrating. They have some spells that, if rolled out in appropriate circumstances, can absolutely feel like they are short-circuiting any kind of encounters or challenges that you might have.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get into the whole mini game of illusion or not that can come into play. As I think I said back in our illusionist episode, an illusionist in the hands of a cunning and or creative player can be very entertaining, but also maddening.
Which is kind of how you want to play
kind of the
Illusionist.
Point. Yeah.
Yes. That's
all of the magician disciplines are more complex compared to other disciplines, broadly speaking.
Yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily say that an illusionist is more complex than the other casters. They are more subtle, more difficult.
Yeah.
If you're looking for a flashy magician type, illusionist is probably not the one you want to look at. They've got a bunch of really cool effects and buffs and manipulations, especially as you get into higher circles and you get into stuff that can really like mess with perceptions or thoughts or mental control.
Yeah.
But you're going to be less flashy or direct than an elementalist would be, for example.
Oh, agreed. Yes. It's the elementalist is going to be overt because they're using all the elements you can actually see, touch, taste, and feel. And the illusionist is going to be sly and subtle and sneaky and any other S word I can think of.
Yeah.
Subversive. Let's go with that. So, no, I like this. And by all means, we'll get to exploring third and fourth circle spells eventually. But if you have any questions for us, please, again, drop us a line at edsgpodcast@gmail.com. We will be happy to get to those. The inbox is empty. It is all yours. Have at it. First come, first serve. And until next time, go use some chicanery for your legend.
Good night, everybody.
Chicanery. Good word.